Welcome to Loom's Playground, everybody. This is Loon Smile. And finally, after about half a year of waiting, the Ghost Experience update is out now for Ghost Recon Breakpoint. My buddy that I play co-op with on the Ghost Recon games, we've been waiting for this update for so long, and let me tell you, we've been having a blast the past few nights playing this, and it's everything I wanted from this update. Granted, there's still a few bugs here and there, but we've been having a great time. And in this video, I'm just gonna break down how my buddy and I play, how we make the game more immersive, and how I feel it's just much more enjoyable than the default settings Ubisoft gives you in the game. And when you play in a more immersive, with the more immersive and realistic settings on, it just makes the game transform into something else entirely. So here we go. You can choose between the regular experience with all the gear level, rarity, and stuff like that, or the immersive. And of course, I'm choosing the immersive. That should be a no-brainer. So yeah, this just takes all that gear level stuff out of there. That's a Division thing. Doesn't need to be in a Ghost Recon game. Um, so yeah, now it gives I'm looking here at the other settings it gives you for this immersive mode. So obviously the gear level is going to be off. And then the next setting it gives you is the difficulty for the enemies. I'm going to set that to extreme, so the enemies are just going to be extremely lethal, and they'll be able to detect you pretty quickly if you're just putting yourself out in the open. And then these tactical settings, it looks like that's going to be something I'm going to go in and customize exactly how I want. But from what it's looking like, you can tweak like how many weapons you can carry, bandages, and how often you get injured when you take damage, stamina consumption, and how your health regenerates, and then whether or not when you're reloading with a clip, if you're losing the ammo from the previous clip that you're taking out of your weapon. Um, so yeah, looking at this, I think I'm just going to keep these settings how they are. I'll change the risk of injury to always, so whenever I'm taking bullets, I'm going to get injured. I actually really like this mechanic they added, where when you get injured, it has a physical effect on your character, and you've either got to heal up or just limp along and find cover and safety until you can craft some bandages. I really like this mechanic. I'm glad they've added this. So yeah, I'll just go with like as many bandages as I can carry, 'cause we are carrying backpacks, right? Um, Partial health regeneration. That sounds good. So like when you take damage, you've got the 3 bars of health. You can regenerate. It looks like you can regenerate within the bar of health that you are, but if you've already lost a full bar of health, you have to heal to gain that bar back. So either with if you're injured, you got to use a bandage, or with a syringe, you heal with a syringe, and then you can get that health back. That looks pretty cool. Alright, so now I'm just going to have gameplay rolling for the rest of this. This is gameplay from my buddies and I's first night checking out this update. So that was update came out Tuesday. Yeah, so there's a lot more settings to go through. Um, but it's just, it wouldn't be make for a very interesting video if I went through every single little setting, because I'm kidding you, I'm not kidding you, there's almost 100 different settings you can tweak to change everything from the gameplay, the controls, to the UI. There's just an incredible amount of settings for the UI, and most of that I'm gonna just leave to people's personal preference, but I'm gonna go over the main things, um, and point out like in this gameplay, like what I've removed from the HUD and how I've changed things. So the main thing, of course, like to make this game just really breathe life into the world and make it more alive, like having the HUD minimal is so important. So my buddy and I, Smart Mushrooms, that I play this game with, we have pretty much everything on the HUD turned off except for communication markers and certain loot markers. So, like you can see in my gameplay here, there's no mini map. There's no like lobby screen on the right hand side showing who's in my party, and then no objectives for missions like hovering in on the screen. So we have like the mini map turned off, um, and all those things that clutter up the screen, giving you information about missions and stuff. We have that turned off. Another nice thing that they added in Breakpoint, which I like, is so you can make the mission objectives and parameters dynamic, so you can have them show up on the screen when you need them, and that's when you press down on the D-pad, and it'll bring up your mission information on the top left, and then you can toggle it and untoggle it at will. So I actually really like that. So when I need to review what objective my buddy and I are working towards, I can do that. And it's not always there sitting on my screen. And so you can see here I'm marking a group of enemies, and that's like when you just aim and then you press the A button, you can put down a custom marker for communication that'll last a few seconds. So my buddy and I are always using that, like communicating where enemies are and strategizing in it. From what I remember, things get pretty hairy here in this gameplay segment. Another big thing that affects the immersion in this game is the enemy marks. That's where when you're like sending your drone over a base or an area, or looking with your binoculars, or even aiming with the scope of your weapon. A lot of games now, and Ubisoft games in particular, they'll put a little mark over each enemy's head, and it'll stay there levitating like for the duration of your mission in that area, and so you'll always know where every enemy is at all times in the base, which for me, this just kills the whole gameplay experience. It's almost like making the game play itself. So that's something that's really important for me to turn off, because when it just takes so much of the emergent gameplay out of the game, because when you have constant X-ray vision, how is that fun? It just takes all the challenge out of the game. So my buddy and I, we always like to do our own recon, like manually. Like when we have a base or something we're gonna infiltrate, we'll get into different positions. And my buddy, I'm using my sniper and my binoculars, and he's usually on drone duty. And so we're communicating about the patrols we're seeing and their patterns, in making decisions based on our own observations, and not what this X-ray vision that the game gives us, and where the game's basically playing itself. And this is something that Ubisoft games in particular are all guilty of, like Far Cry. Mainly Far Cry and Ghost Recon. I haven't played any of the Assassin's Creed games, but I assume there's a similar mechanic with enemy marks. So yeah, that's just something to really, if you want this game to be a challenge and be a lot more fun, I would highly recommend turning the enemy marks off. And that's like, there's there's the stereotypical YouTuber video complaining about Ghost Recon Wildlands and Breakpoint, and how the gameplay just gets repetitive, and that's why they didn't like it. Well, a lot of that is on the player, because what's also great about the Ubisoft games is they give you this, especially Ghost Recon. I mean, it's like a co-op gamer's dream, to be honest. This is probably the best co-op game I've ever played, period. I mean, it gives you all the tools that you need to customize the experience how you want. Like you can make, so my friend and I have decided to make this as realistic and tactical as possible. And if you just go with the default settings for the game that Ubisoft gives you, No wonder it would get boring because it's so easy and just plays itself. I mean, if you can just walk up to a base and instantly know where every enemy is, and there's no threat of danger of things going wrong and having to be on your toes and make quick judgment calls. Yeah, that would certainly get boring. So Ubisoft gives you the freedom to make this game and experience as challenging and unpredictable as you want. So that's what my friend and I went with. We spent 2 years playing through the entire game of Wildlands. I mean, granted, we weren't playing it like straight for 2 years. You know, we'd play for a couple months, and then we'd play other games, and then we'd come back to it. But over the course of 2 years, we played through the entire campaign of Wildlands, and I have to look at my Xbox Live data. But I think I have at least 8 days in-game time on Wildlands, and that's just because when you make this game immersive and everything that you do in the game has to be observations and strategic communication between you and your co-op partner. Just makes the game feel so alive, and you're not just having the game handed to you by the default hand-holding settings in the that Ubisoft always gives out. But what's great is Ubisoft gives the freedom to like change those settings and make the game as punishing and challenging as possible. All right, so I think I've gone enough on that. But then other things like, so my buddy, he prefers to play mostly in first-person aiming. Like I'll scope in when I'm using a sniper rifle or something, but generally, I usually like to aim in third person, so I do use a crosshair, and so for like mid-range and close range combat, mid-range and close range combat, can't talk. Yeah, I'm usually aiming in third person with a crosshair, and this is just something that comes down to player preference. If you always want to be aiming in first person using iron sights or your scope or whatever sight you have on your gun, you can certainly do that. I prefer the third person for mid-range and close range. Occasionally I'll scope in, and then I'll use my higher magnification scope for my snipers. And yeah, let's see what else I can go over. Yeah, like, also another thing is the fast traveling. So the way my buddy and I play, we have a rule of like not ever fast traveling. Now it's a bit of a different beast of a game here in Breakpoint than it was in Wildlands, because a lot of the missions in Breakpoint you have to be in that main hub level Erewhon to start missions, because you've got to talk to critical people to get the mission rolling. So I could see like if it becomes tiring to always be going back to Erewhon, occasionally we have fast traveled back there. Because in Wildlands, you could just talk on the radio with Karen Bowman usually to start up a new mission. You wouldn't have to go to one location every single time back on the map to start a new mission. You would just talk to her on the radio and then go to whichever province or sector in a province that your next mission was at. So in here it's a little different because you do have to go back to Erewhon a lot to talk to key people. So, but yeah, for the fast traveling, we basically don't like to fast travel at all. So this is where the game, also a key part that makes the game come alive, because the traversal in this game is incredible. Um, like moving on foot from location to location and then picking up vehicles that you find along the way. It's just so enjoyable. The only game that I've had as much enjoyment out of the traversal of the world would probably be like Breath of the Wild, which I'm still playing through. Nintendo's new Zelda game. I mean, it came out in 2017, but it's still new for me. Um, so the traversal in this game is just such a joy. Like they really went all out with the environments in this game, and I think it really does. You're I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice if you just spawn a helicopter at every bivouac that you're at to get to your next mission, because the environments are just incredible, and walking through them on foot and figuring out how to get to locations is just so much fun. And yeah, so my friends and I, we do use helicopters sometimes. Um, we have our game set to where we can only spawn in vehicles at Air One, so all the helicopters and vehicles we come across in game, we're not spawning them at like bivouacs or anything. So it becomes more immersive that way. And then yeah, like just spending half an hour going on an expedition to your next mission, like it sounds like it would be tedious, but it's really not. It's just such a joy. The world is so beautiful. Like everything that Ubisoft did with the lighting and the this island that they've created with the different climate zones is really just a sight to behold. Um, so I'd highly recommend like moving through this game without fast travel. Like always try and get to your next location, either going on foot and enjoying the wilderness, or using the vehicles that you find around the map, taking them from any enemy patrols, or like stealing a helicopter from an outpost. That's always a good time. So you're welcome to leave me any feedback in the comments, or if you guys have any recommendations for how people can make this game more immersive. But I can tell you right now, this is probably going to be my favorite co-op game of the gen. I have about 50 hours or so in the game now, and now that they've um, added this ghost mode into the game, it's finally in a state that my friend and I are ready to put a lot of time into it. Because we'd played it a little bit when it first came out, and we were enjoying it, but it became more and more, I guess, disappointing and irritating with what they'd done with the gear score, like from the Division and everything. So now it's back more into a straight tactical game. So we're really enjoying that. We've been playing it every night since the update came out, and I imagine I'll be playing it every night through the weekend. Um, so in closing, thanks for checking out this video, and I'll catch you guys next time. Loon Smile signing out.